I want to spend the rest of the time talking about a whole bunch of gay stuff because I mentioned on the show we've done 5 of these here.
Yep.
I think this is our 5th episode since we've been with Aura. I've only once mentioned anything about being gay. I don't make it an issue unless it's relevant.
You're quite a straight gay, aren't you?
It is what it is. I mean, believe me, I'm gay. I'm married. You know what I mean? I'm married to a dude. Pretty gay. Okay. But I don't
it's
find...
It's not gay, actually. You're giving, it's not gay.
Okay, so
you are selling out.
I know.
Selling out to heteropatriarchal institutions.
Yes, we'll get to those.
Stay gay.
Yeah, I know. You're a better
Get
gay.
married, my God. Imagine anything more awful.
So before we do that portion of this, it's hilarious. The liberal here is the married one, and the conservative one is the one railing against marriage. It's fascinating.
Look, I just think it's sad that, I want heterosexuals to come back to the institution of marriage. I want them to realise that it's a good thing. I want them to become more socially conservative in that regard. I don't want gay people. I mean, look, growing up gay...
All right, so we're just going to go all in on this. I'll reverse my question. So go.
All right. I don't think being gay is particularly fun. And I wouldn't choose it for any of my children, for example. I think Sally Cohn, who said that said that she'd like to have a gay child, I thought was deplorable and sadistic and incredibly selfish.
So meaning what? If Sally herself has come to a place, a realization
what she said was
what
if she could pick, she'd rather have a gay kid, and I thought that was a deplorable thing to say.
Because what? What's
because
the
it would
deplorable
make your make a child's life so much more miserable.
But it's getting easier every day. Don't you think that when how old are you? Oh, gee, you don't ask a gay guy how old he is.
Jesus.
All right, well...
You really aren't a proper gay, are you?
Yeah, see what I did there?
Terrible failure as a gay man. It's like asking a lady.
But point being that it's a lot easier for you than it was for a 30-year-old gay man 10 years ago, and it's going to be way easier.
Sure, but
so that's the normalcy that we're creating.
No. You're confusing two different things. There's a sort of practical... ease with which a gay person can go through life because there is no longer the entrenched homophobia, if you like, in wider society. The fact that gay people can have a relationship and live together and nobody really cares, and I don't think anybody cares anymore.
Well, I've said that for a long time. I'm so sick of talking about it, which is why I don't... All I wanted was equal rights. I just want to be treated as shitty at everybody, not better than anybody.
I think gay people getting married and in relationships is a shame because I quite like the dissident, naughty sort of aspect of gay life, and I think that it's part of my gay privilege to be able to tumble out of a nightclub at 3 a.m. with sort of the doorman on my arm and hopped off my face. But
can't you do that while still having the other gays?
Because people like you,
please.
People like you, getting married, getting a dog, living in a little house in
my dog.
Horrible. No self-respecting gay is home enough to feed something like that. I mean, I don't know what you're doing with your time.
Really,
what do you do? Come home, come at 6. Oh, darling, who's cooking tonight? Oh, shall I do? Oh, all right then.
Well, he cooks. He's a great chef.
Awful.
Yeah, but do you
shouldn't
really
be in your
think
house long enough to be able to keep that alive.
But really, do you really believe that? I get it. I get what you're doing here on the snark level. I get it.
I do think there's some value in this because I think that, and I think it's because homosexuality is a dissident, aberrant sexuality, and I mean that in a morally neutral sense.
You just mean it's the other. The other.
No, I don't mean that. You're not using the term correctly. But
well, abhorrent. What do you mean?
No, I didn't say abhorrent. I said, look, let's set the religion stuff aside because we're going to get into a rabbit hole. But let's just say, homosexuality is not the norm. It is an aberrant sexuality that Mother Nature may do for a variety of reasons. Right? There's some evidence that people with higher IQs are more likely to engage in different sexual appetites, which is one of the reasons why gay people have disproportionately higher IQs. And one of the reasons I think, for example, that gays should get back in the closet because we're making society stupider because gay people aren't breeding anymore. Whereas previously you would have a marriage with a woman and you would have a couple of kids and gay men were still in the gene pool, right? Yeah. Now they've taken themselves out and they don't have their own biological children anymore. You've got your sort of 2 to 5% of the smartest men in the population aren't breeding anymore.
Well, people keep saying us, are we going to have kids? And I say, I don't know, but we're going to keep
But if you do, you should have your own biological children because you're smarter than most people.
That was worth a laugh. Did you catch that? What I just did there? We're going to keep trying.
Oh, I see.
I see. You're so into your thing there.
No, I thought we were being serious.
All right.
Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. All right. It doesn't work when you. It's kind of a silly thing, but it's certainly true. The sort of average of intelligence in society is sort of chugging upwards slowly, but it is definitely being retarded if 5 to 10%, 2 to 5% rather, of the smartest people in society aren't breeding anymore. So anyway, I think that's a silly argument, but I do think it's a shame when as a gay, is one of those people that Mother Nature has selected to be different and to test stuff out and to push the boundaries, which we'll come on to in a minute in respect of free speech, I think. That you sort of buy into precisely the sort of socially conservative institutions, which I love and I recognise are the building blocks of society. I recognise they're the basis of a healthy society.
Right. So I'm fascinated.
As a homosexual,
as
a homosexual, not gays that shouldn't have them. As a homosexual, you should recognise that your evolutionary function is to experiment with different models of things, right? And one of the ways in which gay culture and society has done that is the sort of sex-mad hedonism that I enjoy, that I think that I'm sorry that you don't have anymore, because you have this horrible muck to keep alive.
Well, I've done, wait, hold on, but you're combining 18 different things here. So, first off, I sense that a lot of what you're saying is you long for the day probably when you were 22 and you were out every night and doing all kinds of drugs and having all kinds of sex.
Changed.
And you, all right, so with last week, right? So you long for that day, and a lot of mainstream gay. Look, I live in West Hollywood. I see what the clubs are like.
I think gays have become boring. So I think gay people have become very, very dull.
But
it's a shame.
Isn't that
no? It's not good, because
the success of equality.
No. Why would we want to be equal? We were already superior. Why would we want to go down to equality? It's absurd to me. We already, gay people, and where Mother Nature makes her mistakes and makes her great discoveries. Look at look at all the gay geniuses in history. You know, whether it's Turing or Abe Lincoln reportedly, or all the Roman emperors. Look at what Mother Nature does with these aberrant, special people at the top end of the intelligence and sort of dissident, scale. Those what Steve Jobs would call the crazy ones, right? And this is why the tech and gaming industries are disproportionately gay and trans, because it's those special people that have brains wired slightly differently from others, who can make those great leaps, who can consider problems differently, who are generally more creative and more whatever.
I'm with you on that. Music,
why?
Art, I'm with you on all that.
Why, as a member of the gay master race, would you want to slump down to the level of heterosexuality?
Because you should have the option.
Well, yes,
I'm not telling you what to do.
Fine if you want the option. What I'm telling you is you made the wrong choice.
Yeah. Okay, so you don't think that a lot of these people that are doing all the things that, look, I did them. All of those things, the sex, drugs, all of that. I did all that. You know what I mean? And I look back on much of it very fondly, actually.
Yeah, people call me a traitor to my sexuality. You're the traitor to your sexuality. At least I won't. I don't think my agent would allow me to tell you what I get up to, but
But wouldn't you so the things that I think you're looking at this in this nostalgic way of fun, that there was this sense of fun or something, but wouldn't you trade some of that? Look, when you think about all the people that are having promiscuous sex and getting all kinds of diseases and all that, aren't those numbers going to directly go down because
I don't care about sexually transmitted diseases. Who gives a shit? I don't care about that. What I care about is the fact that there's a serious point here. It's not just the fun. Right? Living those fun lifestyles, and I mentioned Steve Jobs earlier, and he said that many of his innovations come from the fact that he took LSD, right? Gay people have a license to experiment, a license to explore. And it's one of the reasons why gay culture, which is so to do with exploring boundaries, pushing the limits of acceptable discourse and speech and thought, right?
Those are all the things that I love.
No, you don't, because you slid into,
But I'm honoring all of the.
No. Yeah. You just slid into this sort of boring domesticity. It is precisely with those horizon-broadening experiences which you have given up as a housewife or a house husband or whatever.
I think after 2 weeks of having home-cooked meals and watching Netflix,
I've had 2 weeks of home-cooked meals. I wanted to kill myself.
Yeah?
I wanted to kill myself.
Good.
People call me a traitor to my sexuality, please. No, look, I think that gay people are one of the groups in which Mother Nature one of the groups Mother Nature has given license to go wild, and that's why so many great artists and inventors and authors and all have been gay, lesbian, whatever, right? Because we have a unique license and unique opportunity and insight into the fringes, into that edge of culture that makes stuff interesting. We have an ability to push further than ordinary people can. We can say things they can't say. For example, I can go on TV and say all manner of outrageous things about feminism only because I'm a homosexual. Right.
Let me ask you something. Do you think I could get away with those same things? Because obviously we have a little different affect. People always say to me, "You don't seem gay," which I
no, you wouldn't be able to get you. I mean, it's kind of
they say it as a compliment.
It's kind of my thing, right? People know that I'm going to do this, so I'm sort of social justice proof. It's very difficult to argue that a flamboyant homosexual who never shuts up about black boyfriends is in any way bigoted, right? So it gives me. I've established myself in the public mind, the public imagination, in a way that you haven't. haven't.
So a lot of that, ironically, that's what this is about. You like, while you in some ways rail against these people that want to be protected, like the feminists or whatever, you do like having
I enjoy using their weapons against them, and I'm perfectly happy to use their weapons against them. I wish I didn't have to.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you admit it.
No, I don't want to be trolling people for my whole life. Of course I don't, you know. But I would much rather it were the case that everybody had free, open, frank discussion. But the media as currently constituted, if you want to push forward the discussion outside the realms of academia, in the public square, talking to ordinary people, for example, I write for a publication that's sort of mid-brow, mid-market publication for everyone, the sort of digital media equivalent of a tabloid newspaper. I want to talk to everybody, and to push debate forward in those environments, you do have to play by the rules, and some of those rules are based on identity politics, which I think are absurd and obscene and stupid, but I will certainly play along with them if it helps, because so long as progressives and feminists refuse to have a debate on the basis of the facts and insist on having a debate, you know, on the basis of identity and skin colour instead, fine, I can beat them in that too, you know? Yeah. I'm happy to beat you on any playing field, on any battlefield you choose. They've chosen identity politics, I can beat them there. If they ever want to come to the table and debate properly, I'll beat them there
All right,
too.
so that, I think you're onto something interesting there. You'll use their weapons. I don't like their weapons, and you're just admitting that you're using their weapons against them. And I think in a cheeky sense where you know that you're... There's a wink to what you know.
Of course. And look, anybody who reads my Twitter feed knows this. You know, I know exactly what's up. I know what's going on. But they still lose anyway.
Yeah. So part of the reason why I wanted to do this is because I do find that, again, while we literally come from different countries, but come from different political parts of this, that you really, at least in American media, only get one gay. Only one gay gets out there, and it's the Bravo gay that's either on TV because they're a fashionista, or they're a sidekick to one of the housewives, or they're somehow involved in pop culture, or something like that. Or every now and again, someone can break free, like an Anderson Cooper, but then sort of have to be completely asexual, right? Never talk about their life. And I think this is sort of interesting because we both break that paradigm, right?
Yes, and I think it's partly because we are cultural libertarians. I would certainly describe myself as one. I think you probably... I hope you'd agree with that. I think that we are those sorts of insurgent, countercultural, new media personalities. We exist, you may not like to hear this, but we exist on a spectrum with people like Trump and Ann Coulter, probably more on the serious end of it, simply in tapping into ordinary people's frustrations with the limits and absurdities of, you know, what they see on broadcast television and what they read in the newspapers. There is an alternative way of having a discussion which is more honest and more, I mean, this kind of thing could not happen on broadcast television, for example, and that's a problem. That's a problem for the media.
That's why I'm
one of the reasons, exactly, one of the reasons everybody hates them. You know, and I think we both are taking advantage of that fact. As far as the sexuality goes, what I find interesting about, you know, a liberal and conservative homosexual agreeing on so much about authoritarianism is that, well, from my point of view, homosexuality is where we experiment, and, you know, drag queen culture, for example, is all about pushing the boundaries of acceptable language and thought. We see the threats to freedom of speech, for example. We see the authoritarian threat coming over the horizon a long time before anybody else. And we're in a position to warn other people about it. And there's a very serious point about this, which is not just that, you know, transsexuals hate drag queens, which is one front in this sort of progressive fracturing, because drag queens love, you know, this sort of no-holds-barred Joan Rivers-style comedy, which, you know, is the essence of gay identity, sort of pushing those boundaries and experimentation. And transgender people who have kind of fallen into this authoritarian mode hate that kind of stuff. It's not just about that. It's not just about our community fracturing, if you like, but it's also that we see some of the serious consequences to these infringements on culture, because of course politics is downstream from culture, and what becomes not unacceptable to say in politics becomes unacceptable to, what becomes unacceptable in culture becomes unacceptable in politics. Right. And we recognise and we see the warning signs here.
So we're sort of the canary in the coal mine.
Yes, I think that's true.
This, I think, is...
And I think gamers did this too, you know. I think gamers and gays have very, very similarly, because gamers are marginalised people in many cases, disproportionately ethnic minority, disproportionately gay, disproportionately transgender in my experience. Often marginalised personalities. Often people who are retreating into video games maybe because they don't have great social skills, often very bright, sort of brilliant, kind of autistic, you know, methodical, very male, brilliant minds, very funny, but sometimes don't have the best social skills. And in that way, they're quite similar to gays, because they occupy a fairly unique position in the social hierarchy of society. And I think gamers did in their own industry what gay people ought to be doing in public life, which is precisely that, being a canary in the coal mine and saying, for example, that the sort of nannying, hectoring, language policing that's happening in progressive media today is a problem. And it's a problem because, I mean, the first signs are the policing of gay sexuality. There's a piece in the Daily Beast, I think, that said that men who express a racial preference on their Grindr profile are racist. Now, it's obviously an absurd thing to say. It's completely stupid. And it was some idiot middle-class white woman who decided that she was going to police gay sexuality today. Just as we, just as we were getting to a position of tolerance, suddenly that someone coming over the horizon to police gay sexuality. It's happening for two reasons. One, gay men have high status in society. They've become very mollycoddled, very celebrated in the media. So they've sort of acquired a kind of privilege. And when the left, the left is constantly engaged in the business of ranking people according to their oppression rating. And gay men don't score very well in those games because, we look good and we have money and we've basically become another kind of white man for a lot of these guys.
Right. So you would say that basically the progressives, or as I'm now calling them, the regressives, basically are done with the gays.
Yes.
Sense this as coming from the progressive world. I get the sense they were like, we're all for it now.
They're done with you now. They're done with you now. They've got your gay marriage, and now you are going to find increasingly that they come after you, and they're going to come after you because you're being too racially insensitive. They're going to come after you because you use the wrong pronouns. They're going to come after you absurdly and brilliantly for misogyny. I mean, people make arguments to me sometimes, and they say, and it's not as credible in your case, but I can understand how they construct the argument, as bonkers as it is. They make arguments that basically boil down to you're such a misogynist you went gay. Sort of you hate women so much I can tell why you sleep with men. Now, it happens to be that I do think there's a large element of choice in my sexual orientation, although that goes entirely against a progressive consensus.
We'll do a whole thing on that next time.
Another show.
Yeah.
But it's an extraordinary thing that they're now coming after gay people for being misogynistic, for being racist, all sorts. You're no longer of any use to your own side, right? They have used you. They have put a wedding ring on your finger. They have domesticated you like they would a dog. Like you did your dog. They have put you in, they have made sure you got the right politics, that you say the right things in public. They have domesticated and delineated, the sort of useful liberal gay idiots and put them all in little ghettos in cities like the Castro and West Hollywood. And now you are the product and the chattel of the liberal left.
Right. So I know by you don't mean me specifically.
No, I do.
You know that I stand.
No, I do mean you specifically.
But you know that I stand.
You've bought into all this nonsense.
No, but you know I stand against.
So there's a sort of gay marriage as a way of controlling gay people.
Right. But I suspect that along the way, if you met the right person, you would want to marry that person for all the bravado.
Marry? No, I might move them into the West Wing, but I wouldn't marry them.
Okay. So we do have to wrap up here, and we could have done 3 hours here, and we'll do this again for sure.
But the serious point is,
I want to get to this piece that has been the through line to everything we've been discussing here. This authoritarian left, this regressive piece where they have no problem relentlessly. Look, I could use the example of the gay rights groups here in America, GLAAD or the HRC, who will attack the pizza makers relentlessly, but will say nothing when gays are thrown off the roof in Iran, right? Yep. And
or even when the wrong kind of gays speak out. There is a sort of person in America today. Sorry to interrupt you. There is a sort of person in America today who is just homosexual and discriminated against. It's gay conservatives. It's much more difficult to admit you're a gay conservative than to admit you're gay. You admit you're gay, you get slaps on the back, you get applause, you get how isn't he brave? All of the social signalling about being homosexual is positive, with one exception. And that's if you're a conservative, other gays, the gay establishment, and Bret Easton Ellis wrote an amazing essay about this in Out magazine. It's called something like In the Reign of the Kingdom of the Magical Gay Elves. Everybody should read it. It explains how the gay establishment, which is basically now done with gays, and is sort of a self-perpetuating set of institutions to push leftist socialist principles, got nothing to do with gay rights anymore, will treat you as what you would call an Uncle Tom in race terms. I have never in my career, as a purposeful provocateur, I don't play the victim on Twitter or in my columns because I think you should take as well as you give, which is
I'm nobody's victim.
A rule all gay people learn quite early in life. But you see, missed that one. See, I did that too.
Oh, there you go. I got it. It took me. I was shifting. Yeah.
It's a rule we learn quite early. No, it's I think you should be able to take it as well as give it. And I never play the victim, but I've never had so much really poisonous, vitriolic nastiness as from other gays who think that my politics are wrong. And it's horrifying.
Wouldn't the ultimate success here be, you know, I've been arguing for a while now that by gay marriage being legal now in America, in the long term, you actually help the Republicans, because this was such an idiotic issue for so many people to have to vote on.
This is Hitchens'
the idea that I had to vote on, not that it was the deciding factor, but it was, I had to vote on whether I could get married. It's a fucking nonsensical and painful and pathetic way to have to vote. So I actually think ultimately this may turn into a net win for the Republicans, because
I'm not sure
gays.
I'm not sure that's the case.
No?
I've written about this, and I call it minority wars. The way in which, you know, if the last 10 years was about setting men and women against each other, the next 10 years is about all kinds of other minorities. I mean, you know, when the Hispanic population in the US, who are not encumbered by the guilt of slavery, become the demographic majority, you're going to see some pretty brutal policing in places like Ferguson. You know, because they don't have the same kind of white middle class guilt about you know, Black Lives Matter. They won't, you know, Hispanic mayors in barely a few generations are not going to be paying multi-million-dollar settlements to black families. They're going to be sending police in with guns. You know, there's all sorts of horrible things on the horizon, and it's driven by the identity politics of the left, which are crumbling but not fast enough. The serious point about all of this is that cultural libertarianism, which I keep banging on about, which I think is what we've been talking about, which is a word that I'm glad is catching on with people.
Can we just, I know you named a few of them before, but from the article that I saw on Breitbart, I thought it was a brilliant article. We'll link to it.
It wasn't mine, by the way, but...
Yeah, but can we just name a couple of these people? I know you named a few of them, but Bill Maher was included in there.
Bill Maher's in there, Chris Rock is in there, even though he does rely a lot on his blackness as a source of his comedy. He is somebody, for example, who's spoken up about the political correctness at colleges, on college campuses, and says he won't perform to students anymore because they're too touchy.
Right.
I think he understands this. I think Eli Roth, the horror director, Adam Baldwin, who's the sort of fantasy actor, and he's done a lot with the Gamergate stuff. And then you've got, the way these things normally work is you've got a sort of vanguard of hellraisers, like me, and Katie Hopkins in the UK, Ann Coulter perhaps here. Now that all those three happen to be right wing, but I don't think you can. Place,
right. Well, that's why
I don't think you can place people on the political spectrum.
And that's why I wanted you to mention some of the names, because what I liked about the article was that these people were from all over the place.
I think the hellraisers tend to be conservative today simply because the establishment is liberal, right? And I think that's why. Then further behind that, you've got the more politically ambiguous figures like Christina Hoff Sommers at the American Enterprise Institute, or Kathy Young, feminist journalist, who aren't so easy to place politically. Kathy's definitely a liberal. I think Christina's a registered Democrat, in fact. You know, but who nonetheless recognise the excesses, and they sort of, in the wake of the chaos created by the hellraisers, like people like me, kind of, you know, winding people up and being, you know, sort of viciously teasing people I consider to be, you know, dangerous and damaging. And
I got it.
And
you don't believe half of it, but you're throwing bombs.
No, I believe all of it. I believe all of it, but I'm perfectly happy to accept that I will say it in the most provocative way possible, because I think the only appropriate response to outrage culture is to be outrageous. You know, if you're going to tell me that I can't make jokes about skin colour, I will come back at you, you know, with 10 puns about me being obsessed with black penises or whatever, you know.
For the record, you brought a 6'6" black porn star to the security to the.
I hired a black porn star just because it would annoy the right people to be my bodyguard, because I get death and bomb threats everywhere I go, and I don't make a big song and dance about it except to laugh at how stupid it is. I mean, I don't believe any feminist bomb threat's ever going to be credible. They can't even tie their own shoelaces together, let alone wire a detonator. I'm not worried about getting blown up by feminists. What I am worried about is the chilling effect that they have on free speech. And let's get back to the point.
Yeah.
Gay people, I think, and I think this is something in which you and I are united, having privileged access, if you like, to, you know, the limits of acceptable speech and discourse. There's that great drag queen joke, you know, about, which I love from Britain, which always gets shocks, and a national newspaper wouldn't let me publish, which was. She comes on stage and she says, "You like my new hair? It's called the Whitney, black and dyed in the bath." You know, and people get sort of horrified by, "You can't say that." You know, gay people live and love, you know, that sort of stuff, and we see before everybody else, you know, what the serious consequences of this sort of chilling effect on free speech can be, and those consequences are, you know, the sum total of human knowledge and whatever, you know, starting to be cut off. J.S. Mill, classical liberal, is unconscionable to modern feminism. They don't believe some of the central tenets of you know, on which, you know, British society was built. This is dangerous stuff. And it's dangerous stuff because of what's happening in our universities too. I mean, just look at the sorts of, you know, look at the feminist hegemony the women's studies departments that that run rampant on campuses. Yale, I don't know if this. I hope this is true, and I'm not misremembering this. But I saw something. DeRay Mackison, the Black Lives Matters guy, is teaching a course at Yale in defense of looting. All this kind of stuff. This sort of weird, crazy.
I saw a tweet about that.
I don't know if it's real. We'll see. But the women's studies stuff at in many decent universities is scary. No. It's denying human knowledge. It's making people. I mean, this stuff makes it to government policy.
And in this regard, it's not. You're not just talking about women's studies though, because this is coming from all over the place. Like Berkeley protesting Bill Maher coming as the commencement
It's
speaker.
Progressivism generally. I've just seen. I'm supposed to speak at USC tomorrow night, and I've just seen this horrendous blog post from somebody who says that I'm a sort of misogynistic hate speech merchant because I made a joke about I don't know what it was. It was probably some joke like feminist Barbies just come out. When you pull the cord, it says math is hard. Let's lie about rape. Some joke like that.
Yeah.
And they paint me out as some sort of misogynistic harasser.
They're words, people. I think that's a takeaway, and that's really where I sort of wanted to end this with you because we can. Everything I've tried to do with this show so far is show that you can disagree with people, and we can go back and argue the tenets of feminism or whether I think you're right or wrong about men being oppressed or the gay marriage thing, all those things. But allow the conversation to happen, and I think that's
what's happening in America.
That's what the cultural libertarians they were talking about are trying to do.